Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the 2025 FMA Innovation in Teaching Award presentation. As you know, FMA launched this award a number of years ago, and it's designed to recognize inspiring instructors, enhance the quality and relevance of education in finance, and disseminate successful innovative practices. And this year, we have an overwhelming number of applications, nominations coming from universities around the world. And it was a tough decision to finalize three finalists for today's session. But before we get to them, let me thank committee members first. There was a lot of hard work put into the selection process. So each of us independently ranked all the applications, and we compiled results together. We had intense discussion because there were many, many excellent applications. So it was a tough decision, but I want to thank all of them. They're not here today, but phenomenal job they did for finalizing our three finalists today. Now, I want to say thank you for coming to learn from the best practices, but at the same time, you have a job to do at the end of the session. We'll have a polling for you to participate, to vote or rank vote the three candidates for the winner of the award. So please do not leave after presentations. I'll show the poll link for you to cast your vote. Okay? All right. So let me get to our first presenter. First presenter is Professor Kerry. Professor Kerry is a J. Howard Creekmore Professor of Finance and Professor of Economics at Rice University. He's currently the Finance Area Coordinator and also the Finance PhD Director at the Rice Business. He previously taught at Northwestern, UPenn, Indiana, Texas A&M, and WashU, many, many schools. Where he was Senior Associate Dean actually at WashU St. Louis. He was also an editor at RFS and currently on the fourth three-year term for the GF as associate editor. He has served on editorial boards at many, many other journals. So I'm keeping it short because Professor Kerry has a very impressive resume, and he's written textbooks. Very important. He won a teaching award 2 years ago. So this is the second time he's been nominated, and this time he brings something even very exciting, different from the last time. So let me take no further your time, but today he'll share his creative approach in presentation titled AI-Assisted Financial Analysis.
Thank you.
All right, floor is yours.
An opportunity to talk about something that I'm pretty passionate about. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the last few years, which is teaching generative AI for finance. So I started teaching this course 2 years ago, and I was really making it up as I went along and throwing stuff against the wall and hoping something stuck. The students were pretty patient. They didn't go to the dean's office and demand that I be fired, but I don't know that they learned a lot. So last year I taught it again, spring of this past spring, and I know more about what I'm doing, and the models have gotten better, and so the course went better. But even since spring, things have changed a lot, and so the course is going to be drastically revised again. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I think we should teach about generative AI in the finance curriculum, and a little bit about how I've done it and how I plan to do it. So the course that I teach is a half-semester class at the end of the first year. It follows a core finance course and a course we call Applied Finance, which is a spreadsheet modeling class that goes deeper into the core topics. And I cover basically the same topics in my course because I might like to teach options and futures, but there's somebody else who's going to teach options and futures in the second year, and so I can't preempt them. And so I teach basically the topics that are covered in the core class, but I approach them from an AI instead of using spreadsheets. So we all know AI is important, but nevertheless, I'm going to start off with a couple of quotes. So this is from a CNBC piece a month ago, and it says that J.P. Morgan is working towards a system where every employee is going to have their own personal AI assistant. It says you'll still have people at the top who are running things, but many of the things underneath are going to be done by AI. And we've all seen pieces like this. It's scary times ahead for junior bankers. So workers are going to shift. The ones that remain will shift from being creators of reports or makers to checkers, to checking the work of the AI. Here's an opinion piece that was published by the Brookings Institute this year. It says the architecture of financial work is undergoing a fundamental shift. The definition of financial talent is also changing. Excel is no longer a differentiator. Python is fast becoming the new Excel. But technical skills alone won't cut it. The most in-demand profiles are those that speak both AI and finance. So I think we have an obligation to our students to ensure that they speak AI when they get out. In the short run, at least, that's going to give them a leg up in the employment market. In the long run, I don't know that there's going to be any employment for financial analysts because AI does a very good job of it. Okay, so what should we teach about AI? So what I think we can teach is where the world is going. So I'll say a little bit about that. What I think is that we're going to have essentially a new way of using computers. We won't be point and clicking anymore. You know, we used to use terminals. You had to type everything in as a terminal. And then we got graphical user interfaces, and wow, the world changed. You know, everything's point and click now. And I think there's going to be a third method, which is everything is going to be through a chatbot. So the chatbots are going to be agents that do everything. We just tell them what we want. OpenAI this month introduced OpenAI apps. These are apps that will run within the chatbot. So you would chat with ChatGPT and do whatever work you want to do. And they launched tools to build new apps that would run within ChatGPT. Obviously, they want to be the new Apple App Store. They want to be the gatekeeper. And there's a big competition now to be the gatekeeper on the consumer front and on the business front, and have everything run inside the models. Have the models connected to the code that actually executes things, and so everyone can work through that. Just last week, so I had to pretty much completely redo my talk because just last week Anthropic introduced a new idea, which is called Claude Skills, and they make it very easy for developers to set things up so that Claude can be a general purpose agent, and we can do everything within Claude. And so I think that's where the world is going, and because these skills are so easy to use, I think we can show our students now how to get to the future today. So all we have to do is explain our workflow. We want to analyze this data. We want to generate these plots. We want to create these reports, PowerPoint, Word, what have you, Excel. We want to create these outputs. We explain the workflow that we want to Claude. Claude creates the skill. When they launched these Claude skills, they launched also a skill for creating skills. And so you can tell Claude you want to create a skill to execute this workflow. And then the next time you need that workflow, you just say, hey, Claude, do this for me. And it will run the analysis, generate the figures, generate the reports, generate the Excel file. So we'll do everything for you. And obviously, these skills are going to be valuable to employers, and they'll be valuable to students. Now, if your student's going to JP Morgan, they won't need to be able to build these things because JP Morgan is building everything. The big banks are going to be first, and then everyone else is going to follow. But if you're going to a smaller bank or even a big company that's not a bank, because the companies in general are behind the banks, then these skills, at least in the short to medium term, are going to be extremely valuable. So there are a few principles that are going to remain constant that we can teach as sort of a science, and then everything else, of course, is in flux. First, students need to know how to work with AI. So students in my class last year asked me, tell us more about prompt engineering. How do we write good prompts? And the trick is just to work with the tools. You just chat with them. and you learn what they can do, you learn where they get stuck, you learn to tell them certain things so that they don't get stuck, and through a process of working with them, you learn to build good prompts. You can save those prompts then and upload them later so that you save time, or you can take the prompts and turn them into skills, and then you don't even have to upload them because Claude will access that information about how you want things to be done. So another basic principle is that AI doesn't do numbers. It does, but it's prone to make mistakes. And so any type of financial analysis you ask it to do, it's going to generate code. And so one thing that students have to get comfortable with is seeing the chatbot generate Python code. And that's a little bit of a stumbling block. If they didn't see the code, they would be happy. But the chatbots will generally expose the code, and then they say, what in the world is this? You have some students who are impatient, and you have some students who are maybe intimidated, at least I do, and they need a little hand-holding, a little reassurance. They need, I think it's very helpful to have maybe a one-day, half-day workshop. Here's what Python is, and here's what it does before the course begins, and I've got some materials for that I'll share with you. So those are the principles. The other principle that is that domain knowledge is still the most important thing. It's probably going to be even more important now that we have AI, because AI can do everything else. And so domain knowledge is the most important thing. But if you have domain knowledge and you know how to use AI and you're comfortable with having AI code things and do things for you with code, then those are the students that are going to be easy to place. Now, the tools definitely aren't constant. In the past 2 years, I used Julius.ai, which I recommend looking at if you haven't seen it already. It's a chatbot that's very friendly to students or to whoever's using it. It chats a lot. It explains the code that it's generating. It explains the output of the code. And so it's an easy entree into this world of working with AI plus code. But I think that Model Context Protocol, which Claude Anthropic introduced last year, and now the skills that it introduced last week have changed the game. And so this year I won't be using Julius.ai. We're going to do everything in Claude. And Claude skills are just a combination of customized prompts and some Python scripts. And when you need that, Claude doesn't read all of it up front, so it's not clogging up the context window. But when you ask for a certain type of thing, Claude will check its skills and say, oh, I've got a skill for that. Let me read how to do that. And let me see what files I should be using when I do that. And then it will do it using its ability to execute Python code. Now, there are several versions of Claude, so this is probably getting too much into the weeds, and I don't want to take too much time. But I think for general finance courses right now, people should be using Claude.ai. But if you're teaching AI for finance, you should be using Claude Code. All right, so I'm going to try to do an example. We'll see how this goes. So I'm going to use Claude.ai for this because it'll work. And so Claude.ai, which is the the web version of Claude, has the skills that Anthropic created. And one of the skills is to generate Excel files. So let me back away from the mic for a minute. I hope you can still hear me. And go to Claude.ai and upload something. I'm just going to copy and paste this text into the chat window. I just uploaded a file, which is an HBS case called Valuing Walmart 2010. So it's, as it says, a valuation case. And so I'm going to give it that prompt. The prompt says, read the case, do a two-stage DCF analysis, document your assumptions and reasons, create an Excel workbook. And it's going to generate Excel using Python. So it will write Python code and execute the Python code in its Python environment to generate an Excel workbook. Now, it knows how to generate an Excel workbook because of the new skill that Anthropic introduced. So it will read the skill, figure out how to generate Excel. And how to generate means use formulas instead of hard coding numbers and format things nicely. So it's reading, I hope you can see, it's reading now the Excel skill guide. So it's reading the docs that it has on hand for how to do this. Just-in-time learning on the part of the Claude model. And it's going to, hopefully, it's grabbing the data now and building the DCF. I'll check back with it in a minute. Here's another demo. So last spring when I taught this course, I said, well, we could create apps using the same Python execution that we use for financial analysis. And so we can embed our financial analysis in an app and share it with everyone. We can post the app online, and then it will be publicly available. Or we can pass the file around and do it that way. So I'm going to run this simultaneously. I'll run this on my own computer. It's just obviously a very simple little example. But it turned out, so last spring I said, we could do this, but it won't be an emphasis of the class. It seemed like too much to me at the time. It's just a 6-week course that I teach. But then it really resonated with students. They said, oh, I can build stuff. So it's fun, not just to, find the mean variance frontier, but to build an app that finds the mean variance frontier and to put it online, and this is your mean variance frontier app. So whatever financial topic you're teaching, they can easily, relatively easily, they can, it's easy because you don't really have to do anything. I actually personally don't do anything anymore. The only thing I do is to ask AI to do stuff. So, 24/7, I'm chatting with Claude Code. Do this for me, do that for me, do the other thing. This morning I was trying to get this stuff to run off a thumb drive, and I said, well, if we did this, how long would it take? And Claude said 2 to 3 hours. And I said, I mean, if you do it, how long will it take? And Claude said 5 to 10 minutes. So let me try running this. Well, let's check back and see how our Excel is going. Now, it's still running. Well, it's almost done. It's verifying everything. So this is VS Code. This is one platform in which you can work with Claude Code. I click on the Claude icon there, and I get this. And so I'm going to copy and paste the text here. I think I'm going to copy and paste it into the prompt window in VS Code. See how that works. And what I'm saying is create an app and run the app and tunnel it. So tunneling it means it's going to set it online at a public URL, but the app is going to be running on my machine. Where did that go to? I'm going to get in trouble here. Where is my app? The only thing that's reassuring about live demos is I figure I can't do too much worse than Elon Musk. I'm sure you saw when he tried to show that the windows in the Cybertruck were shatterproof, had an employee throw a brick at a window and it shattered. You'd think they could throw a brick at a window before they got on the stage for a live demo just to see if it worked. I have two windows open. Ah, thank you. Thanks. Okay, so now it's telling, thank you very much. Now it's telling me, it's giving me a summary of the results. What I want to see is the Excel doc, and it makes reasonable assumptions. It calculates the cost of capital. It's going to document it probably in the Excel doc where it got all of its assumptions from, why it's making the assumptions it's making. It's creating a bunch of text here. I could have told it to put all this in a Word doc or a PowerPoint deck, and it would give me the Word doc or the PowerPoint deck. And instead, it's printing everything to the screen. Come on, just give me the Excel. It's done, as you can see, I don't know about you, but if I had this turned in, I think it would be an A. It's a pretty substantial analysis. So let me download the Excel file, save, open it. So you can see we've got an assumptions worksheet. We've got historical data, the DCF. So we've got a terminal value. Terminal value, is net experienced cash flow divided by R minus G. This is a fully functioning, all the formulas are in there, Excel workbook that Claude generated for us in 5 minutes, read the case, formulated assumptions. So this is first scary for us as educators. So we're going to have to worry about that, but also this is what JP Morgan is implementing, right? In fact, you might have seen the news this week that OpenAI has hired 100 ex-investment bankers, junior bankers, to generate Excel models with prompts so it can train its models to produce exactly the formatting that the investment banks want. And so when the guy from JP Morgan said many things underneath are going to be done by AI, the AI is going to produce exactly the type of model that the bank wants, formatted the way the bank wants, using the methodology the bank wants, and so forth. We can teach our students to build this. Now, if I look at this case, I'm pretty sure, I've done this before, if I look at it, I'm pretty sure that it's going to do some things I don't quite like. It's going to, for example, every time I've done it, it's forecast CapEx as a percent of sales. Now, sales should be linked to assets. It's assets that generate sales through the turnover ratio. So sales growth should forecast asset growth, and CapEx should be calculated as a plug, not as a percent of sales. Doesn't make sense for CapEx to be a percent of sales. So that's a good teaching opportunity for students. Let's go through this. Do we like it? How would we revise it? And now we take our revisions the way we want it done. We create a new skill that uses the Excel skill that Anthropic has, but builds the spreadsheet, builds the analysis the way that we want it built. Right? So that's how you teach your students the future today. They can create these customized skills for Claude and then do all their work by asking Claude to do it. I must be running out of time, right? Yeah, sorry. I'm going to skip. Sorry, I knew this was going to be long. I put a clock in here that I could look at, but I didn't look at it. Yeah, so let me just say that I put together a website. Gen AI for Finance, that has a number of materials to help people who want to teach this stuff. So first there's a description of what I do directed towards instructors. And then I have a blog that I started in the spring where I've been posting how I teach different things and what I think we should be doing, teaching, building stuff, creating apps, running simulations, mean variance frontier, Fama fringe factors, web scraping. And so different topics that I've covered in my courses are described in these blog posts. And there's also all of my course materials from last year. And as I develop the course for this spring, those materials will be posted as well. And also I have my slides here. And the slides for the talk I'm giving at 11. And here are materials for a one-day Python workshop that you could do before the class starts if you're interested. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Wei. Thank you to the committee for giving me this chance to talk.
Professor Chiang is Associate Dean, Professor of Finance at the Belk College of Business, UNC Charlotte. With research interests in asset pricing, I-Hsuan is a passionate educator and award-winning teacher. He has strong passion for transforming complex financial concepts into engaging, hands-on experiences. He helps students discover that behind every equation, that's a story about how the world works. He believes, in his own words, finance makes the earth go round, and that learning finance should be both meaningful and fun. All right, so today he'll be sharing his approach in this presentation called Bricks and the Risks, Building Blocks to Break Through Conceptual Roadblocks. All right.
This is my great honor to be here to share my teaching technique. And it's also, I'm very excited to be here to see my idols, Kerry and Tianyang. They are great mentors in my academic career. I learned how to teach from them, actually. So today I'm going to talk about, like Kerry said, domain knowledge, right? Domain knowledge is very important. And I'm going to show you how to use brick, not to shatter the window, but how to learn domain knowledge, right? All right, so first of all, the title of the talk is called Bricks and the Risks. The punchline of this project is to use Lego blocks or bricks to understand the risk structure of any asset. We teach finance, we teach portfolio theory, risk and return as a pricing, and then we tell students, hey, there are total risks measured by variance or volatility or standard deviation. There are systematic risks. There are idiosyncratic risks. Systematic risk is measured by beta, and the beta is related to the co-movement with the market, and the only beta will give you the reward for bearing systematic risk. That is a risk premium. A lot of concepts, right? And then we throw a lot of terms to the students. This is much of the terms, maybe not an inclusive term in the chapter about risk and return and asset pricing. A bunch of different jargons. And the students got confused. At the same time, they still have to understand those complicated charts and the equations. And they walked out the classroom and they scratched their head and they have some conceptual roadblocks. They may ask, hey, why isn't a zero beta asset actually risk-free, right? They are different or they are the same? What's the difference, right? And then you give them another question and then they say, hey, why doesn't a risky stock always have high beta, right? Are they the same or different? So in this teaching project, we are going to give students a playful yet powerful experience. It's a hands-on experience to understand the risk structure of any asset, how we can put different types of risks together, how we can understand different types of risks, how we can aggregate them, how we can decompose them, and how we can visualize them, all right? So that's the goal. The setup is easy. We are going to use, like I said, bricks and brick by brick to understand risks. It's very easy to begin with. You only need color-coded building blocks, right? If you have one, that is good. So let's say if I have one red block, and I also have one yellow block, I can get started already, right? But it's better to have two. It's better to have more. And it's okay to also have students to bring later on. Honestly, when I thought about this project, I stole my son's Legos. And each time I was like to steal it, and he was like, where are my blocks? Dad, you have to return it to me. And because of the simplicity, because it's so simple, you only need the Lego blocks to teach. And a lot of my PhD students, they also learn from me, and they borrow those blocks from me, and for teaching presentation when they give job talks. So those blocks, they travel a lot of miles, right? This is the first time that they came to Canada, so welcome to Vancouver. All right, here we go. Here's the deal. We are going to begin with the definition. So the definition is, if I have if I have red block, it's a 20% variation, and it's systematic risk. Systematic risk related to market perception, market volatility, all kinds of macroeconomic issues. Yellow block, on the other hand, represents firm-specific, unique, unsystematic, idiosyncratic risks. All right, it's specific to the firm when the firm's plan is on fire. So for NVIDIA, for example, this is like no one is going to use AI, or everybody is going to use AI, that kind of thing, right? For this one, it's like a NVIDIA RTX 5090 is on fire, that kind of thing. Right? If you are crazy about gaming, you know what I'm talking about, right? So let's begin with the risk-free asset. So I'm going to use the Legos to build towers, all right? And they represent the risk structure. When we say risk-free asset, there is no risk. So the risk-free asset's risk structure is here. It's here. You don't see that, right? Because there's nothing. There's no variation associated with risk-free asset. That's what we mean by risk-free asset, no variation. Now let's think about another zero beta asset without red block. However, it has 20% of idiosyncratic risk. For example, a low risk of lottery ticket, for example, right? So this looks like it. So if I think about a low risk lottery ticket with 20% variation, this is the risk structure of that low risk lottery ticket. Now let's consider another example of zero beta asset. It's like I have to jump off the building to get a low risk lottery ticket, right? It's riskier. So the risk is probably 40%. It's still idiosyncratic. Whether I can survive, the chance I can survive is nothing to do with what's happening in New York Stock Exchange this morning, right? So let's say it's 40% risk, okay? So now we can see what is the beta. Beta is number of red blocks. That's how we teach students. The number of unit of systematic risk. There is no systematic risk here. What is the idiosyncratic risk? That's 40% because there are two yellow blocks. What is the total risk? Total risk is the systematic risk plus idiosyncratic risk. Systematic risk is 0, idiosyncratic risk is 40, right? So this is a zero beta asset with 40% total risk. This is also a zero beta asset with 20% of risk, total risk. This is a risk-free asset with zero beta and zero total risk, all right? Now, I already showed you 3 types of zero beta asset. That answers really the first conceptual question. Why isn't a zero beta asset always risk-free? Because there's idiosyncratic risk possibility. All right. Now we are going to be ready to build more, we are going to add systematic risk. So first of all, let's think about how S&P 500, let's consider it as a market. The reason why I use 20% as the starting point is about, that's a rule of thumb variation of S&P 500. Let's consider it as a market. So S&P 500's risk structure is just like this, right? 1 unit of systematic risk and absolutely no idiosyncratic risk. So this is like the market, just like that, right? But for individual firm with beta of 1, that may also have idiosyncratic risk, right? So let's consider an individual firm with beta of 1 and 20% of idiosyncratic risk. So here are the questions. What is the beta? 1, the number of red blocks. What is the idiosyncratic risk? Yellow blocks, 20%. What is the total risk? The sum of everything, 40%, right? It's very easy. If you can count, you do addition, you can understand the systematic risk and the idiosyncratic risk, right? Let's consider this one is actually what Apple looks like. Apple has 40% of volatility and the beta of 1, right? And this can be applicable to various assets. And this also helps us to understand why doesn't a risky asset have higher beta all the time? Because we can construct different unit beta assets with different idiosyncratic risks, right? Once again, it's very simple. The number of red blocks is the beta. The yellow blocks represent idiosyncratic risks. The sum of the yellow blocks will be the idiosyncratic risk, right? The total will be the total risk volatility. This is an example of 60% volatility, beta is 1, and the 40% of idiosyncratic risk, okay? We can consider several more examples. For example, if I consider a bullish 2 times S&P 500. Beta is 2, no idiosyncratic risk. All right? If I consider Apple, I already told you 1 plus 1, right? How about Bitcoin? Bitcoin is more volatile. It has beta of 2, so you need 2 red blocks. It also has 80% of idiosyncratic, so 80% of total risk, which means the idiosyncratic risk is 40%. So this is the risk structure of Bitcoin is. Beta of 2, 40% idiosyncratic risk, total risk of 80%, right? So everything is visualized. It's visualized. Everything is hands-on. And you can give numerous different examples to ask your students to replicate the risk structure. Right? How much time do I still have? Okay. So one side benefit is to understand the correlation, because that's the key of capital asset pricing model. We can also use this risk tower to understand the correlation of the asset with respect to the market. The trick is to identify how many red blocks relative to the total number of blocks, all right? So here is an example. I have 2 red blocks. I have 4 blocks in total. So 2 divided by 4, now we use division. That's 50%. This means that the correlation of this asset with respect to the market is 50%, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Let me give you another example. This one looks like this. 60% total risk because I have 3 blocks. 20% idiosyncratic risk. Beta is 2. That's exactly what we show in the slide, right? The number of red blocks 2, right? The number of total blocks, 3. So the correlation, 2 over 3, right? It's very, very simple to understand the correlation. It takes a little bit to see that if you look at the equation. I promise this is the only time I'm going to show the equation because I would really want to justify that it is correct, right? If you look at the equation and then you backward engineering the correlation, this is exactly the ratio of blocks that can represent the correlation of any asset with respect to the market, right? So as you can see, with very simple blocks, you can understand what we mean by systematic risk, what we mean by beta. Beta is number of red blocks. What do we mean by idiosyncratic risk? Just sum of those percentage for the yellow blocks. What do we mean by total risk? I just sum of the percentages of the all blocks. That's it, right? And the side benefit is I can understand the correlation, right? So it's very easy. Why does it work? Easy, simple, hands-on, visualized. Right? And we convert very complicated math and the symbols, charts, into very simple, playful, yet powerful way to understand risk structure through blocks, right? So lastly, this is the challenge for everybody, right? Can you see the beta, the idiosyncratic risk, and the total risk, and the correlation of this asset with respect to the market? So I asked AI to generate a lot of graphs here. So this is one of them. I think this is interesting to see that. So first of all, what is the beta? How many red blocks? 3, right? So the beta is 3, right? So what is the total risk? 80%, 4 blocks. Each block is 20%. 44 times 20 is 80%. What is idio? That becomes trivial. Idiosyncratic risk? 20%, right? 1 block, 20%. Okay. Lastly, that's the tricky one. What is the correlation? 75. All right. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you.
Dr. Tianyang Wang is professor of finance at Colorado State University. He earns PhD from UT Austin and holds both CFA and FRM designations. Tian has pioneered the integration of generative AI into finance education, showing how AI can transform the way students learn and prepare for a human plus AI-driven future. His dedication to teaching has earned him multiple teaching awards at both Colorado State and the UT Austin. Today, he will share his creative approach in a presentation titled Customized Fear and Greed Index with Gen AI.
Good morning, everyone. And it's such a great honor to be selected as one of this year's finalists with great educators like Kerry and I-Hsuan. As a very passionate educator myself, I've learned so much from the previous award winners. And it's such a great opportunity to be able to share some of my personal teaching experiment on how to integrate generative AI into a finance education teaching. Well, teaching often happens behind the closed doors. With the open source, the spirit of sharing that FMA promote, we get to learn from each other, to see, to adapt, and to improve. So whoever takes back home the award today, I think the real winners are our students. My motivation for this project really comes from 2 pieces. The incredibly rise of AI and also what I observe day to day in my classroom. In the past several years, I have developed and taught a new course at my university, Colorado State University. Is the advances of the financial technology, or as my students often call that, the fintech course. In this course, we try to bridge 2 worlds together. The world of traditional finance with all the theories, the models, and this fast-moving new world of fintech, this new ABCD for artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, and deep learning, that is rewriting the rules of the game. And as I taught this course, I noticed something that is interesting and sometimes a little bit frustrating. First, while our students are pretty fluent in the language of finance, when it comes to the language of coding, it's a different story. On the other side, the programming class offered in the business school often like a finance contest. And yet, we cannot simply turn a finance class into a programming bootcamp. So what we can do? Now, that's how I realized something really powerful, like Kerry has been demonstrated. The generative AI is changing everything. With generative AI, we finally found a way that we can bridge the finance theory and programming practice very easily in the classroom setting, and more importantly, make it fun. Now, in some sense, this is kind of like in the late 1970s when the finance professor finally figured out a way to teach option pricing, not in the solving of stochastic partial differential equation, but using a very simple visual binomial tree that every undergraduate student can follow. So my goal became very simple. I want to help our students to use generative AI not as a shortcut to finish their project, but as a creative tools that can bring their ideas to life. I want them to create something meaningful, something that can blind their financial intuition with the modern data science. And that philosophy brings to the project is called the Customized Fear and Greed Index. And I call that the learning with financial courage, the market curiosity, and the AI-generated code. As Warren Buffett famously said, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. You probably have seen the CNN version of that, the Fear and Greed Index, measuring what Buffett was talking about. As a meter, just like a meter on the car's dashboard, is a very simple, very visual interface that captures the emotion of the market, from the extreme fear to the extreme greedy, from the panic to the party, from ICU to karaoke, and everything in between. Now imagine our finance student, not a software engineer, is going to recreate and create their own version of the Fear and Greed Index from scratch. When I bring this idea to my classroom at the beginning of the semester, my students get shocked. No one believed they can do that. But they all agree on board to explore this with me and see how this powerful AI can do. Now let me show you how this can be work in a classroom setting. We started from exploring how CNN create their own Fear and Greed Index. It turns out that CNN Fear and Greed Index is constructed on 7 indicators. And that 7 indicators are coming largely from 3 different categories of information content: the equity market, the bond market, and the option market. From the equity market, they are using the market momentum, the market strength, the market breadth. From the bond market, they are using the safety haven demand, which is measured by the difference return between the stock market and the treasury bond, and also the junk bond demand, which is measured at the spread of the investment grade bond and the junk bond. And then from the option market, they are using the fear index, the VIX, and also the put-call ratio. Now, after learning how CNN did that, I challenged my students, do you think this is perfect? Is there something left behind? And that's where creativity takes over. Our students start to bring in what they have learned from their domain knowledge They're talking about, in the equity market, we have the moving average, we have the MACD, we have the relative strength index, we have all kinds of the Bollinger Band. And then in the bond market, how about let's throw in the move index, the OIS spread, and the term structure. And someone would like to go micro using the consumer confidence index, using the CPI, using the unemployment rate, you name it. Now, once they have those ideas, I ask them, well, we know how this game should be played. Are you ready? Now, before we make the game, we have to set up the playground. My university is incredibly supportive to my innovation. And I applied and I won the Tuber Teaching Innovation Award. And that is used to cover the subscription for all of their OpenAI. So everyone can get to use the best version of OpenAI. But some of us students also explore the cloud and Gemini on their own. On the compiler side, we are using the Google's Colab, which is a free online compiler. And I also introduced the other one is called Wang compiler that can be used for HTML if they're designing a website. Now, to get them to use the real data to play, I also introduced our students how to get access to the financial data through API. In this class, we mainly use the free one from Yahoo Finance, mostly for the market data. And then for the Fed, St. Louis data set, mainly for the economic data. And on this playground, before we run, we start to take some very baby step. We started from talking, what is generative AI? Why generative AI is so powerful? And then we let the students prompt the OpenAI with something very, very simple, like print hello world, generate a random number. And then in the HTML, I asked them to generate from the generate of random number, turning that into a 3D rolling dice. Let me see if I can demo that. Hopefully, if I click on this, it should bring me to this one compiler. And if I run that, this is a rolling dice. I can either click here or click here. You got that idea. And then coming back, once we got familiar and comfortable with using OpenAI, we level that up a little bit. We recreate the financial calculator, the one you see from iPhone. Is a few lines of prompt, and we can generate a fully functional financial calculator like that. Let me try. This is a fully functional financial calculator you can use for calculation the basic algebra. Now, after our students got from fear to familiarity, we move back to the finance domain. In the finance domain, we are seeing our students very quickly start to use generative AI as a co-pilot. Using a co-pilot, they suddenly discover what they can now do using this powerful thing and to expand their capability. And of course, to make things a little bit more efficient, I also teach them a little bit about what we call that prompt engineering. For the prompt engineering, essentially, you have to ask the question clear, specific, and in context. Essentially, your prompt is kind of like a hypothesis. It needs to be clear, structured, and also testable. So it's about how to ask the question and how to ask the question in the right way. And before long, we are seeing our students start to use AI to prompt, to pull the data through the API, to clean the data, to standardize the data, and to generate their own indicators. And in this process, I also reminding our students that AI is not perfect. It can make mistakes. It can hallucinate. Therefore, your domain knowledge is essential in this game. You need to critically thinking about what AI is actually doing and make sense of the output. And of course, through some trial and error, we are seeing the students learn from their own mistake. They start to understand and they start to learn how to communicate with AI, how to generate, how to respond, how to refine, and how to interpret, and how to visualize. So those are the pictures they generated using the real data from either the financial market, from the banks, from the cryptocurrencies, from the option market. And once they make their code work, GPT is turning from a code generator into a design studio. This is the time they can connect what they have generated on the financial indicator into a visual interface. As Ethan has been showing, visual interface is so important to people to understand. And everyone has their own idea, and everyone is different. And they are bringing in their brain of art, being an artist, into a finance classroom, and they're designing their indicator in different ways. Some of that are designing that in a bar. Some of that is designing that in a thermostat. Some of that designing like a meter. And I will tell you this, the first time they see the needle is moving and measuring the sentiment, the emotion, the temperature of the market, you can see your students' eyes are lighting up. At the beginning, they will say, Professor, I have never learned code in my life, or I'm terrified of coding. And now they will say, it's not bad. It actually works. I can do it. And just like, Ethan is talking about his son using the Lego, my son is the same. Whenever you are bringing your kids to the playground, no kids want to leave the playground. And once they learn how to play, they want to play more. So other than recreating their own version of fear and greed index, I also give them the optional opportunity to create a heat map. So for a heat map, you essentially bringing in all of the company information and show the performance at once. And the size of the block is representing the market cap of the company. And then you also have the block for the sector. And the color of that block is reflecting if the company has been the gaining versus the losing zone. On the left is the professional version from FinViz. And on the right, that's what created by our students. And some of our students even bring that one step further. One of my students created a website. And this one is pulling the stock information. This is not for the whole market. It is for an individual stock. And he's creating a lot of bunch of technical indicators and then using the indicator to give a selling or buying signal to say this is the right time I should get in or I should get out. This is the time I should be greedy or I should be fearful. And those students bringing in and submit their final report at the end of the semester, reflecting on why they are using this and that of indicator, what is the performance of their indicator over their lifetime, and then what they're reflecting on this market and investor psychology. And then together, we have a little mini conference. I call that Fear and Greed Index Conference. Everyone get to present. And when they're presenting, we have people, they're simply like presenting and pitching to the real client. And we have the peers is criticizing on their indicators. They are providing suggestions and making that improve. And that's the moment I start to feel the energy in the classroom shift. The students are not asking, Professor, how I can get an A, what I need to study, which formula I need to memorize for the final. They start to ask, not only to me, but to their classmates, what if I use another data set? What if I include the cryptocurrencies sentiment into this market? is that true that what we are observing from the bond market will have a spillover effect into the equity market? And how CNN is binding those 7 indicators? Are they doing that either even weight, or they are weighting one of the indicator more than the other? Is there an optimal way? Those are research questions. They are not assignment questions. And that's the moment I realized that our students leveled up. They are thinking as a financial analyst. They are experimenting like a data scientist. And they are communicating like professionals. Now, the bad thing about having this project is from the beginning of people are saying, I don't know about coding, to the end, I think this works, I think I can do something better. And the feedback from our students are very touching and super inspiring. For example, one student said, the learning environment in this class is amazing. It's actually the most unique one I have had. And another one said, thank you for providing us a fun project and very interesting class. I'm very excited to see where the future of AI and soon AGI will take us in the future. And my personal favorite, the last one said, it was my favorite final project I have done in any class, probably in my whole educational career. And then even better, and I do not plan to stop updating even after the exam. I remember Albert Einstein once said, education is about when you forget everything you learn, whatever stay is the true essence of education. If a student cannot stop after taking their final, they want to learn on their own, I think this is getting closer to the essence of education. And I feel that this project is giving us a way to teach our students how to communicate with AI, how to combine their finance theory and their finance intuition with the power of a problem-solving assistant using AI. And that's why I'm here. I'm very eager and happy to share this with everyone in the field. And I do believe that this is very transferable to any university, to any program, because everything we have been using here, from the compiler to those AI, they're either free or open source or easily accessible. And the instructor doesn't have to be an expert in AI or instructor have to be an expert in the programming. All we are here is to assist. We are here to guide their curiosity, to struggle, to learn, and to celebrate their discoveries. And I think at the end, we're going to empower students to be fluent not only in finance, but also in the language of AI. I'm going to close with a brief analogy that I feel captured the moment of the time we are living in as educator. You may recall the airman with the glowing device in his chest that keep him alive and at the same time slowly poisoning him to death. In some sense, generative AI is kind of like that. It is exciting and a little bit scary. It is super powerful, but it also carries a risk. If our students over-relying on that as a shortcut for homework project, then they lose the pleasure of learning and they lose their creativity. And if us as educator over-relying on that, we are losing the human touch and the human connection with our students. However, OpenAI is also open another door for us. And I truly believe that because we can show our students the power of AI to expanding their horizon from Canada to whole America, from whole America to the world, generative AI is not going to replace the sparkle of curiosity. And because of that, it can amplify, it can expand the way of learning. And I want to thank you everyone for being here, and I will be happy to share. Thank you.
Well, thank you, first of all, for those three wonderful presentations. As I think we all have, how do we integrate AI? And I guess this question is for everyone generally, but maybe the two AI presenters. Back when I started off in my professional career, I thought I was going to be a mathematician. So I was assigned to TA for a calculus class. And I was working for this older, very wise mathematician who was teaching this course, a Texan, by the way. And one day I was telling him I didn't think I had done a very good job in one of the sessions, explaining how to do this particular, I think it was maybe related rate problem. And he looks at me and says, I could care less if they learn how to do that problem. The point of studying calculus is the effect the struggle has on the mind, right? So one thing I think about whenever I write, use AI to write code, whenever I try to integrate it into courses, is am I removing the struggle, right? Is there any learning, real learning without the struggle? And how do we engage the students, cause them to struggle, but at the same time, be able to sort of amplify what they're able to produce using these tools? To me, I think that may be the key question. I'm just curious on your thoughts.
Well, I would first agree with you. My coding skills have diminished as I ask Claude to do all my coding for me. And so there is a downside, certainly, to using AI. On the other hand, I can do things I never could have done before. And so that's the exciting part. I do think that there are certain things that we do want our students to struggle with. For example, doing DCF analysis in a spreadsheet is something we do not want to go away from. Working that in the spreadsheet reinforces the concepts in a way that asking AI to do it cannot. I think there are other things we teach that I'm not sure the struggle is actually beneficial. So I don't know about your school, but our school teaches mean variance optimization in Excel. We find a tangency portfolio in Excel. I'm not sure that setting that up in Excel has ever really helped anyone. And so I think that this gives us a new tool for teaching concepts in an easier to absorb way, and maybe we can spend more time on the concepts and less on how you set up the spreadsheet. Yeah, the struggle is important, and we don't want to go away from it in places where it's important. There are other places where we're struggling, it's not actually beneficial, and there are also a lot of things that we can't even ask our students to struggle with because it's so beyond them and so beyond, the industry doesn't use Excel that much, and the investments industry at least. And our students can't do real world data projects in investments because Excel is just not the right environment for it. Now they can. I teach a course called Quant Investing, and we use AI for that. I used to try to teach them Python, and they would copy and paste my Python code, but that wasn't very helpful. Now we can do everything with AI, and they can backtest models, and they can think about which characteristics might make sense to have in a model, and focus on the concepts more. And we take away the need to struggle with putting things in boxes that don't fit, like trying to do that in Excel.
I think it's worthwhile to have the struggle as well. It's important to have the key fundamental knowledge. And at the same time, we all keep in mind that the AI we have today is the worst AI because it's going to be only better in the future. So a lot of times we are going to use our fundamental knowledge, core competence, to understand, to assess, to evaluate the answers the AI will give us.
I think I fully agree that AI can be very scary in some way. If students taking that as a shortcut, then they are not learning much. And that's why I think there are different ways of using AI in a finance education, and there are different way of using that. The way I'm imagining is not to take away the effort, and actually by giving them a tool that they can challenge themselves to learn even more. From my own class experience, our students, once they get to know and they are enjoying their project, they're actually spending even more hours. And they start to learn and they want to know what type of indicators are available out there and how to replicate it, what type of resource of data is available and how to make it work. So I think if we are teaching the AI in a right way, then we are not simply showing them a shortcut of finishing a project. We are showing them a way that they can do something they can never imagine before.
So let me add one more thing. A couple weeks ago, I went to a dean's meeting. I got a faculty from Carnegie Mellon. He told me that in one class, they don't really have the traditional slides, lectures. From day one, they use prompt. They just prompt, and they teach everything using prompting. So they struggle with AI together in their learning process. I think that's a very innovative way to learn stuff.
Yeah, and I just want to add that I remember there's a picture showing that in the early 70s, once students start to have this portable calculator, there are some math professors protesting forbidden the use of calculator on the campus. I think it's kind of resonating now. I read the article this morning. One of the finance investors are saying that the way that the traditional comfortable of learning is giving us less dividends in this field. So the student is deserving to have all the powerful and available tools, and they are going to use it. So if we are not teaching them how to use it in the most efficient, thoughtful, and effective way, then they're going to use that in the wrong way.
Can I add one thing on that while you're walking? Come on up, come on up. I'm older than I think anyone else in the room. And when I was in middle school, I learned to take square roots by hand. So there's an algorithm where you can compute the square root of any number to any number of decimal places that works in pencil and paper. And that was something that we had to learn to do. That was the same term that we learned about slide rules. We don't struggle with those things anymore. I don't think the world's any worse off for it.
Thank you very much for 3 very interesting presentations, especially Professor Kerry for creating the website and share your course materials with all of us. So my question is about the precision in the answers, right? When we teach student financial analysis, it's important to get it precisely correct. It's not just roughly right? Because if you give them the data, run the regression, ideally they should give you the same regression estimates. So whether we're using Excel or AI or Python, it's just a tool to get to the right answer. So how do you make sure whatever student use AI to create is correct? Especially if it's a big project like the third speaker, it's a huge coding. How students know the code is correct, that getting the right data, generating the right measures of the index.
Do you want to take that first?
Well, I think when I was conducting that project last year, AI is not as smart as now yet. We don't have this agent idea and the self-debugging thing yet. And what we are observing is the AI can make mistakes, and they often make mistakes. And that's why in the class, I taught them that we have to decompose that into small pieces, and then they need to replicate. They need to be able to replicate cross-checking on the result to make sure everything is right before they can proceed. And now, what we are seeing, this AI has been evolving very fast. And now the AI can self-checking on the things, you can actually have multiple agents parallelly doing the things and cross-checking within the AI. And then we can also, I think if this has happened at a company level, then they can potentially have multiple person doing the same thing and doing the cross-validation. I think what Kerry is mentioning happening at JP Morgan and the big bank, they are going to emphasizing the accuracy of the platform when they are providing that assistance to every single of their financial analysts. I think we can do a little bit similar things in the classroom to make sure on a smaller project then everything is provided right and accurate, and our domain knowledge is still be the last gatekeeper on that.
Yeah, I would add one thing on that, which is that if you ask AI to do something and you check that it's right, and then you ask AI to do it again, it will generate perhaps different code, right, because there's some randomness. So when you get something that's right and you've checked it, you want to codify that. And so you can ask AI to create an app that contains that code. And then the next time you use the app, instead of asking the LLM to generate new code. Or you can create now a Claude skill, and so it will save that code in the Python script and will run the same script every time, so you get the same output.
Oh, thank you so much for great presentation. The presentation is so informative. So I agree with AI would be a great tool for to promote the student learning. But from I think it's most over here, we need to assess the student work at the end of the semester or in the middle of semester. So can you share how you kind of assess the student project at the end of a semester or at the end of a project period?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. First, I think presentations become more important than submissions. So the report may have been generated by AI. If the student presents it, you can drill them. How does this number relate to that one? Where did you get that? How do you know this is correct? And force them to defend it. I saw it just kind of a random post on LinkedIn this week, which I thought nailed it. It wasn't from a professor, it was from a business person. He said he would solve the AI in education problem by having everyone use AI as much as they want. They don't have to even say they use the AI. Because in the business world, people don't care how you get the answers. They want to know that you know the answers right and that you can defend it. And so you're going to grade on the presentation and be tough. I've always been lazy about presentations. I'll grade the report and I give everybody an A on the presentation. But I think that's where we have to grade now. The other thing is you can give exams that you couldn't have given before. You can hand students a fresh case that they've never seen before and ask them to analyze it. And using AI. And so they can use AI for most of the grunt work, but at the end, they've got to make sense of the assumptions and they've got to defend them. So I think that's another possibility. But I think the big thing is we sort of have to go back to blue books and oral exams. Maybe not oral exams, but presentations where we ask tough questions.
I would like to agree with Kerry that I also do I also ask my students to do a lot of presentations, and then they have to defend their answers. I even ask them to do peer review so that they can, they can defend and offend each other, so they can agree with each other. But in the end of the day, I think nowadays education is more coaching than delivering knowledge. So I give them the coaching value to help them to navigate the technology and the value of technology.
And I remember when ChatGPT 3.5 was launched and draw the attention of the world, very quickly students are using that for homework, for project, and there is a new app called Zero GPT. Is trying to identify whether what is generated is from human or from AI. I think for all the teachers here, the scary thing is the homework was turned in, generated by AI, and the professor is using AI to grade it. Then there's no human in that whole process. I agree with Kerry that at the end of the day, we are all communicators. We are communicating with AI, and then we need to be able to communicate back to human beings. So through a presentation, through this interactive understanding, making sure that students have this critical thinking, knowing what this AI is doing, not using AI as an autopilot. We are using the AI as co-pilot. So it's important that you are there in the role of a pilot, not simply as a passenger.
I just want to add something quickly. You can ask your AI to be critical to yourself. You can ask your AI to be the reviewer too.
All right, given the time constraint, I'm going to allow last question, and we'll go to.
Yeah, maybe just a quick, kind of a silly question, but is it what's the legality of the status of like feeding copyrighted cases? Are there resources to check what you can or cannot ask students to input into these in these models, or like how do you, maybe if they go kind of too overboard in scraping data from places they're not supposed to scrape, how do you handle that kind of risk in pushing against sort of legal boundaries of what is allowed and not allowed?
I think in the classroom setting, we are currently using those free API, either Finance, Yahoo Finance, or the Fed, to make sure the data are legally used. And of course, students can potentially upload everything they want, and some of that may not be appropriate. I think that's why Copilot, Microsoft are coming into the place. They are providing that wrap-up for the AI a company can use. And I've been talking to some lawyers, when they are using AI, they are reaching to that boundary of legal. Because potentially everything on their sites is private. They cannot upload the things to OpenAI. Therefore, I know Microsoft has been developing some tools that making that enterprise level and information will be stay inside in a legal way. I think eventually this AI has been moving so fast. This legal system and all of this regulation has to catch up on that, and eventually making sure that all of the information are stay private and in an appropriate way.
Yeah, very quick. I echo what Tianyang said. I also use Yahoo Finance API. I also use Fred API, ask my students to use them. And also, I want to reiterate that always use the enterprise level AI tool for the reason for data safety. Yeah.
One small example that might be relevant in any way. So this week I was writing a P&T letter, summarizing some letters that came into our school for a candidate who's going up in our school. And it has, of course, all the reviewers' names on their letters. So I ran a Python script to anonymize the letters, remove all of the named entities. And then I uploaded it to Claude and asked Claude to help me write the letter, to summarize who said this, how many people said that, and so forth. So there are things that you can do to protect privacy if you need to.
All right, thank you for all the questions and all the answers here. Please join me in a round of applause to thank presenters again for their time and effort here. Another thank you for coming to the session, and your input is extremely valued. And I hope you can consider submit your application to next year's award. So thank you again.